Hello everyone, welcome back to the Broken Quill, and welcome to my writing desk. This is going to be a deep dive into a singular topic, and I feel some topics benefit from this sort of one-on-one chat rather than a discussion or some other form. This kind of talk won't be a weekly thing on this channel. It'll be more of a when I feel I have something to say on a specific topic sort of thing. I also want to say that I don't like disparaging any other writers. I'm not here to tell anyone that their work is bad, and I by no means want to shame anyone into not liking something or telling anyone what is or is not something they can enjoy. I don't like being a gatekeeper. That being said, no one is perfect, present company included, and we could all use a chance to look at things that don't always hit the mark and figure out what's going wrong. Not every scene is going to be perfect, not every line of dialogue a masterwork. I intend to take a few examples of things that I feel don't really work and try to explain why, in my opinion, they don't. As always, take this with a grain of salt. I will try to speak authoritatively on something I may not be an authority on. Degree or publication does not mean I have the last word, just the first. If you disagree, let me know in the comments and maybe, just maybe, it'll start a conversation. Last week, Craig and I discussed successful writing. If you haven't seen it, I encourage you to give it a listen. It will give you a lot of context for what we're going to be doing here. You'll find a link to that in the description. When Craig and I were talking about successful writing, I got to thinking that it is well and good to talk about what makes successful writing, but how do you really know if your writing is successful or not? You writers out there might want to see some examples of things to avoid. So in this talk, I'm going to get into some low-hanging fruit and talk about Star Trek Picard as an example of unsuccessful writing. So let's get to it. Introduction. So why Star Trek Picard? I ask you, why not? While watching this series, I saw some glaring issues that I feel a lot of other people have noticed. I'm not going to get into whether it gels with the Star Trek canon or whether it properly follows rules set down by previous episodes, movies, or shows, at least as little as I can. We'll be taking Picard as a standalone, singular work. It has a place in the discussion of serialized works, but that is for another time. I also won't be taking a look at the show as a whole, its central character, or problems that the show might have overall. This is meant to be a focused discussion about particular devices that either work or don't work, cause confusion, or clear things up. Don't worry if you haven't seen Picard, though. There will be spoilers. This is meant to be a review of specific literary devices and craft, not a review of the show or its connected parts. Knowing the show would help, of course, and I apologize in advance if I lose some of you who have no knowledge of this property. Alright, with that out of the way, what will we be looking at? Well, I've narrowed this down to 3 specific instances of unsuccessful writing. We'll be looking at supporting characters, how Picard handles a plot reveal, and finishing with a moment of thematic confusion. First, when it comes to a supporting character, we will be focusing on the character of Laris, a Romulan James Bond type who acts as a supporting character for a few early episodes of the show. We'll be looking at her introduction and narrative purpose in the story. Second, we'll be looking at Bruce Maddox and the reveal of the Borg Cube. In this section, we'll talk about how to reveal information to your audience. While the decisions made in the writing here might seem good on paper, it is actually a classical problem of third-person omniscient versus third-person limited viewpoints. Information the audience has versus information the characters have. Finally, we'll be reviewing the thematic choices during the series' denouement, the show's overall thematic perspective, and how a few mistaken choices can actually cause confusion in your audience about what you're actually trying to say. Character. So let's talk about Laris. A little background for the series. Our intrepid hero, Picard, has found out about a dastardly plot of a secret organization known as the Zhat Vash. These are our antagonists, and they are made up of aliens known as Romulans. An android has come to ask our hero's help and was brutally murdered. We are introduced to Picard's housekeepers, two Romulan spies who, in the start of their introduction, begin expositing towards us. They tell Picard and us, the audience, about the Zhat Vash, our dastardly villains, before going on a little investigation. So this is our character introduction to Laris, a former secret agent of the Romulan Secret Police, or Tal Shiar. She has specific knowledge of our antagonists, the Zhat Vash, and she is shown to be intelligent, capable, and a strong fighter. In the first few scenes in Episode 1, she seems only to be a housekeeper who worries over our hero. She is then revealed to us to be an agent of some skill, and then she is instrumental in showing our hero that not only does she have direct knowledge of our antagonists, but is also able to circumvent their technology, reveal their secrets, and in every way proves she is specifically able to defeat the main antagonist of the story. When our heroes are attacked, she proves that she is capable, strong fighter, willing to do whatever it takes to defend our hero from the antagonists. In a conversation, Laris and her husband explain to our hero that Picard cannot go and fight the Zhat Vash, because only the Tal Shiar can protect him. Laris' fellow Tal Shiar explains that they must go with him. Laris explains this is madness and Picard is only safe on Earth at the Vineyard. Skip ahead to Episode 3. We see Picard once again at home. Picard tells Laris that he is leaving, that he never felt quite at home in this little vineyard. The calm is broken when the Zhat Vash attack the vineyard. Our intrepid heroes fight and defeat the antagonists. Our heroes stand triumphant, and our hero Picard leaves to go on his grand adventure, leaving Laris and her husband behind. So that may not have been the best synopsis, but I think we have enough there to work with. So, support characters are characters which exist in a story to give some kind of knowledge to the protagonist or assist them on one specific leg or part of their journey. Laris meets these basic requirements. She gives us a large amount of exposition on our antagonists, tells us who they are, what they are doing, what their general plan is, and sets them up as something to be feared. Even the great spies of the Tal Shiar fear the Zhat Vash. She then aids Picard in the leg of his journey, specifically investigating the apartment and moving the plot forward. So far seems fairly successful, but the problem is when we shift from support character to secondary character. What role does a support character play in relation to the hero? What role does a secondary character play in relation to the hero? So let's look at Laris' qualities from a character study perspective. She is a former spy, has direct knowledge of the antagonist, is more intelligent than the antagonist, has access to devices that would allow her to defeat the antagonist in both a technological and physical way, and she has a strong connection and investment in Picard, that he basically saved her and her husband's life. So why doesn't she become a secondary character? Picard needs her to watch his grapes. A secondary character will do many of the things a support character would do, but is a companion for the hero. They do more than just provide a quick answer or support for the hero, but contribute to the development of the main character, move themes forward, and help build the world in a more genuine way. So why doesn't Laris become this? Maybe the show wants to imply that Laris doesn't want to go, that she isn't so much afraid of Picard going, but maybe she's too afraid herself to go. Her husband seems to be very much to want to go, and she very much does not want to go. She couches this by saying that it is too dangerous for Picard to go. We are then shown that Laris is wrong. It is in fact too dangerous for Picard to stay. Picard turns down nearly all help in order to accept the existence of a captain he's never met and a scientist he only just met, who he doesn't want to take in the first place. So why isn't this successful? Laris' setup is one of a secondary character. She receives a lot of development, connections to the main character, and importance to the primary story. She shows herself as capable and an interesting character, which would be interesting for the audience to follow. She's a good character. This isn't to say a support character cannot be important to the story, capable, or a strong part of the narrative, but they must have a reason not to go on the adventure. Picard's reason for not taking Laris? He's afraid of his grapes going bad. And that's odd. Picard just got through saying he doesn't really feel at home at the vineyard, that it's not his home and, we suppose, not that important to him. Would his arguments be to keep his Romulan spies safe from whatever is transpiring? Perhaps, but they seem far more capable of defending themselves than Picard does. Picard gives this excuse for not bringing in other old friends of his, that he cannot risk their lives, yet he still goes to various members of his old crew, old friends. He even endangers someone who he considers his son. Does someone he considers a son seem more worthy of going on a cause Picard considers a suicide mission? Why does he consider it a suicide mission? Fraught with danger, perhaps? But it's not like Laris is a frail old man with a cane, like our hero. So, we are unsatisfied with this. Laris is never mentioned again. Picard immediately forgets about her and her husband, and they are relegated to forgotten support roles. When crafting a support character, that character must fill an important role in the story and push the plot along, but they require a strong reason to stay a support character. Maybe they are not invested in the hero's journey. They have no real reason to leave, or they are callous and only help our hero because he forces them into helping him through calling in a favor. But Laris is none of these things. She is shown to be a capable, important part of the story with a vested interest in our hero and his journey, and would be an important asset on his adventure. It is remiss to leave her behind simply because you've already planned another set of characters, and so I guess, well, the ship is full, so sorry. Also, my grapes I don't care about, apparently. Also, this is a great use for a spy with skills I could use picking grapes in the future with flying robot farmers. Bye? I'll write. I won't write. Sorry. Let's move on. Plot reveal. I have found that often these things aren't explained on YouTube, so I will explain it at least a little. Third-person omniscient and third-person limited. An omniscient narrator sees all. They watch all characters and tell us everything there is to know. With a limited perspective, we only know what any one character knows at that moment. This is best used with a singular character view, so if you're following one character, we know what that character knows. We see through their eyes as we move about the world. So what is Star Trek Picard? Well, it's omniscient. In the first episode, we are introduced to the fact that the Reclamation Project is on a Borg cube, that Soji, the person our hero is searching for, is there. The camera pulls out of the big reveal. Before getting to Soji, though, our hero must track down Bruce Maddox, the only one who knows where Soji is, but we already know where she is. Keep that in mind. Maddox sent her to the Borg cube to find out about the Zhat Vash and that everyone is chasing her. Everyone wants to get their hands on Soji, apparently, primarily because she knows the location of the other androids. This is all very complicated and knowledge we don't really need to understand for what exactly is going on here. At its basic level, the short scene, it's only a few seconds long, exists to give Picard information so that he can continue his journey. There is much to do in Episode 5 about getting to Maddox, the whole point of which is that he has information that Picard doesn't have. But that's the problem. Picard doesn't have it. We do. So this scene falls flat. We are obviously meant to be excited for our hero reaching Bruce Maddox. We want to find out what he knows. The excitement builds for us as we get closer and closer to this piece of the puzzle. And then, when we finally get there, he repeats to us information we knew in Episode 1. So Bruce Maddox is teased as someone we need to find, someone we need to get to because he has something we don't. We have a build-up of nearly 2 episodes. We finally get him. Our heroes employ subterfuge, secrecy, diplomacy, violence. And then we get him. Maddox. Finally. The excitement comes to a crescendo. He then tells us exactly what we already knew, and then promptly dies. He's killed by the scientist who Picard didn't want to bring in the first place. This also really isn't new information. We saw her cavorting with agents of the antagonist, and it was pretty well established she couldn't be trusted. Then she kills Maddox. After everything Picard needed from him was revealed, nobody laments that he had so much more to tell us. He's done. And now he's gone. You may be noticing a pattern here. Thematic confusion. That's a pretty bold claim there, and I expect there are many that enjoy this show that will probably disagree with me. And that's alright, but I want to tell you what I am seeing here. So what is the theme of Star Trek Picard? Well, there are probably many, and many people have pointed out that there seem to be competing, overlapping problems and questions. A common one people bring up in this regard is the fact that the antagonist seems to be right. When given the chance, and without even thinking about it, the androids decide to kill all life in the galaxy. If not for the quick enacting of Picard and dying, I put dying in quotation marks because that's the part we're going to be focusing on. Nobody dies, yet his death is a pivotal part of the theme I will be discussing. So how did we get here? First things first. A major plot thread in Star Trek Picard is that there is a signal on a strange artificial world which is meant for androids. This message explains that if artificial life is ever threatened, they can send a signal into the void and bring forth the robot space squids. These strange aliens, of which we know virtually nothing about, will descend into the galaxy and kill all biological life, saving the artificial life. The Zhat Vash discovered this message and has made it their mission to destroy artificial life in order so that the signal is never used. When Picard finds androids, the Zhat Vash sends a fleet to destroy them. Picard wants to save them, and so he heads into space to fight them, to prove to the androids that all life is sacred, even biological life. Well, there seems to be a theme in this show, which is that immortality is anti-human. We've seen this concept in other works before. It's oft considered a plucky revelation that the audience is supposed to ooh and ah over, because they never really thought of it that way. We always think about what it means to be human without really considering that death is a quintessential part of what it means to be human. In episode 7, Diana Troy laments the loss of her son, the idea that he was taken too early, that if not for the existence of the androids, he could have been saved. It seems to be a suggestion of the Fountain of Youth, and this is something we see at the end. But to break it down, the immortal androids could have given some of their never-ending lives to save her son so that he could go on to do great things. When the androids get a hold of the signal, we find out the whole message. It would seem that the signal exists because biological life will resent artificial life, because artificial life is immortal. Biological life will then try and eradicate artificial life. It's just an inevitability. Also, Picard is dying. This gets mentioned at the beginning and mentioned at the end, and is never really mentioned in between. So where are we? We're at the end now. The androids, with little thought or care, have decided to destroy all biological life in the universe, and then Picard begs them to stop. When they refuse, he tells them he wants to give them a gift, his life, then promptly dies. The Federation shows up at the nick of time, stops the antagonists, and the androids decide to not kill all life in the universe. In fact, the show tries its best to convince us that Picard is dead. He dies. Slowly, the music rises. Everyone cries over him. It's obvious he's not going to be dead. They've spent 2 episodes before telling us they just happened to have a robot body on hand. But we get Picard's death scene, followed by several scenes of characters lamenting his death. So, Picard has given the ultimate sacrifice. He has died for what he believes in, the sacredness of life in the universe. Or has he? Instead, we get this, a heartfelt talk between Picard and Data. Wait, who's Data? For the entire series, Picard has never stopped telling us about the great Commander Data, the android who gave his life to save Picard. We died so Picard could live. Picard was profoundly affected by this, so maybe this is Picard's dying mind creating images for him to view. Nope. We find out that Picard is actually still alive, as is his good friend, Commander Data. Picard asks if he's dead, and Data says yes. Then Data tells us that he is also dead. So we have two characters talking about how they are dead. They discuss the purposes of their deaths, the selflessness of their sacrifices, and how they miss each other. They have no regrets. Then Data asks Picard to kill him when he leaves. That's odd. Wait, so nobody is actually dead? Why did they tell us they were dead not 5 minutes before? So nobody actually sacrificed themselves for anyone? Data wants to live knowing his life is finite. He states that death gives life meaning. So wait, do android lives have no meaning? Does nothing Data did before he could die worth anything? Was Data truly immortal if he could die? Did he die? Can he die? Picard is uninterested in this. Data tells us, mortality gives meaning to human life, Captain. Peace, love, friendship, these are precious, because we know they cannot endure. The butterfly that lives forever is really not a butterfly at all. That's a pretty butterfly. So then Picard leaves, is given a new body, and Data grows old and dies. Now, I don't usually like to go into serialization, but Data has always wanted to be human. He's tried to learn comedy, to love, to experience, to have emotions, to be Pinocchio. A reference that is made several times through the Star Trek series. So now Data gets to die, to finally be human. Wait, is human life inherently more valuable than artificial life because it can die? So let's take what the show's theme seems to be at face value, that it is mortality and only mortality that gives life meaning. Ergo, the fact that we die makes peace, love, and friendship precious because they cannot endure. So peace cannot be meaningful if it is not bookended by war, love without heartbreak, and friendship without hatred. It's meaningless unless our friends die. The show seems to suggest this is the only thing that makes these things precious, things we have to hold on to. Picard himself in the movie Star Trek Generations gave something of the same sentiment when he was told that time is a predator that hunts and stalks us. Picard retorts that time is a partner that goes with us on the journey and asks us to cherish every moment. But hang on, this conversation is being told to us by two dead men who tell us they're dead, and then explain that, at least at current, are not dead. So their deaths, Picard's to save the galaxy and Data's to save Picard, were meaningless? They sacrificed themselves for these things, but apparently they did not actually die? And wait, is Data suggesting that nothing any of his android kin can ever do be meaningful unless they die? That seems something of a dark thing to say to one's family, to tell them that they can never have meaning, that their lives can never be greater because they cannot die. Picard died to suggest all life is worth protecting, but Data seems to be suggesting here greater concepts of love, peace, and friendship have no meaning unless we die. Was Picard wrong? This is thematic confusion. Picard even tells Dr. Sung that my gain is your loss. I thought dying was an important thing that made life worth living. Does Picard not agree with Data? He is terrified of the suggestion he might now be immortal. But Dr. Sung wanted to be immortal. Should Picard not feel like he's kept the good doctor from a terrible mistake? If indeed the intention is to suggest that in order for life to have meaning, it must have death, then should not Picard have truly died? Instead, he cheated death, so he did not die. What's to stop him from cheating death forever with a myriad of robot bodies? Is the fact of him sacrificing himself not turned hollow by him surviving? Or is the important part the butterfly? That Data wanted to be human? That in order to be human, one must die? Perhaps, but is that the only thing that makes us human? Is Picard human now that he's just a copied set of mental engrams in a robot body that cheated the natural death of his flesh? Is the show about saying how the androids are worth saving because they are androids and living forever is a quintessential part of being an android? So does Data just want to be human so he wants to die? Maybe? It's confusing. What is this whole notion of death trying to tell us that the show either never explains, nor does it ever give us the pieces to form our own? It's unsuccessful. Conclusion. This isn't a comprehensive list of things that are unsuccessful in Star Trek Picard, and I know there are things in Star Trek Picard which can be successful. It's important in our writing to remember that what makes something successful is not always whether or not your reader can figure it out. There are readerly texts and writerly texts, but throwing everything at the wall and seeing what sticks is not one of these things. Keeping things open to interpretation, letting the audience figure out their own understandings, means you still have to provide the building blocks, the pieces have to be there. And for Star Trek Picard, they're not. When it comes to characters, how it uses plot point reveals, and how it treats its themes are all over the place. There's no cohesive place we can go with it. And that doesn't mean you can't like it. It doesn't mean you can't find a message in there for yourself. I find it muddled, and to me, Star Trek Picard is an example of something which is unsuccessful. Thank you for listening. If you disagree, let me know in the comments, and maybe we'll see if it leads to a discussion for another time. If you've enjoyed this, I would love to hear your thoughts. So no matter what, remember to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell, and I look forward to seeing you here again at the Broken Quill.